About 35% of our customer base is in the financial services industry, be it from banks to mortgage companies to insurance companies, lots of underwriting use cases, loan origination systems, online banking apps, and things like that. So we wanted to bring together some of our friends, some of our customers that are in that space, and kind of get their impressions of the industry right now, how they're using decisions in their business, and what are some of the challenges that they face. You know, I was at the Banking Automation Summit. I go to a lot of shows and do stuff like this just a couple of months ago, and everybody was like, well, interest rates are going through the roof, but you know, we think there's still stability, and I think we're going to be okay. And literally, like the last day of the show, SVB went under, right? And then the next one went under, and the next one went under. So incredible tightening in the credit market that's occurring. The increase in interest rates. We literally are sitting on the precipice of a possible government default as we speak this morning. So there are a lot of challenges in the industry. So we wanted to bring together some folks and just get their general impressions. Let's start down here with Miles. Miles, could you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your company and how you're using Decisions.
Yes, so my name is Miles Kirchie. I work for MidFirst Bank. We're based out of Oklahoma City. We've been using Decisions since about 2016. I joined in 2019 to take on some of the bank side workflows. And when I started, we had a team of 4 developers and no dedicated business analysts. Now we have 9 dedicated Decisions developers and a team of 5 business analysts. So it's very rapid growth. Everybody has seen the potential, and I think what was one of the key factors for us was PPP kind of brought to light the speed and quickness with which we could make changes.
Can you expand upon that a little bit? Tell them a little bit about your PPP journey.
If I want to bring up some bad PTSD. So it was like 4 solid months of 20-hour days because we were flexible with making rule changes as the SBA modified their application. We needed to collect more data points from people or get new documents back. So being able to on the fly make a change to a form and immediately see it available to an end user, or if they saw the PDF was filled out wrong, immediately make a mapping change was a big thing that when we started, our .NET traditional application development team said it was not possible to make these changes so quickly. And that was one of the big things where we were like, well, no reason not to try. So that was kind of where we were starting at, and the reputational capital that we gained was overnight. It was very impressive.
So being ahead of the curve, you guys probably wrote a lot more PPP business than your competitors.
Yeah.
Just because you were able to spin so quick?
I felt like it, especially, you know, we had people who were submitting an application and then later that day we're receiving the funds. That was like how fast we were able to, with the RPA tool that we were able to use at the start too. And then when the RPA stuff was starting to be phased out, they were moving towards an API. That was another thing that we were able to really quickly adapt to right within the Decisions workflow that we already had.
I love it. Chris Brady has joined us as well. She's the CIO and Chief Customer Officer at Kinetic Advantage. Welcome, Chris. Tell us a little bit about Kinetic Advantage.
Kinetic provides inventory financing for auto dealers, primarily used car. We do have some franchise dealers, so this is not the in customer financing, although we used it in our previous company, which was exactly that, and we use Decisions there as well. We use Decisions in a lot of different ways. We have a main ERP system. We use Decisions to extend that, fill in all the gaps, the holes, the things that we do not want to spend, to Miles' point, a long development cycle building into the ERP when Decisions will do it much faster, much quicker.
I love it. Mark is here as well. You guys might remember Mark from lunch yesterday. He's one of our partners from Enterprise Technology, Chief Executive Officer there. Mark, welcome.
Thank you. We have been a Decisions partner for coming on 5 years now, and most of the work that we're doing with Decisions these days is not at all the work we initially expected to be doing with Decisions. We expected that Decisions would be used to do relatively small-scale supplemental work for our clients, and we find now, particularly in the last 2 years, that we're building enterprise-scale solutions for our clients, almost exclusively. So large, in 2 cases, actual products for them that they're using. They're all in with Decisions, and that's most of the work that we're doing right now, and it's getting even more interesting.
Right on. Tony Kander is here. He's the director of platform development at Kander. Welcome, Tony. Tell us a little bit about Kander.
So Kander Technology is a mortgage underwriting automation software. So we work strictly right now in the conventional space. Anyone who works in mortgage, typically mortgages are done utilizing AUS systems. So they take your application, your credit report, and they give you a list of assignments and warnings and flags you need to go back to your borrower and have them adjust on. Kander takes that a step further by ingesting borrower documentation and then comparing all the data points across your documentation to your application and your credit report, and then giving you actual decisions on what the lender and the borrower need to go back and fix. And then the cycle repeats until we bring a client to a clear to close so they can close on their file. So it's a complete end-to-end automated underwriting system.
What sort of time savings are you seeing in your close cycles as a result of the things that you've built in Decisions? Can you kind of quantify the impact?
Sure. So our clients typically see anywhere from 10 to 14 days in reduction in their cycle time on a conventional file. So back during COVID, that was very substantial because cycle times were somewhere to the effect of 45 to 60 days. And so we chopped that down up to 14 days in total.
That's amazing, right? I mean, that's just enormous, especially in that industry. Let's stick with you, Tony. What's the biggest challenge right now that you see in the industry, and what ways are you thinking of using Decisions to solve or to meet those challenges?
So I think the largest challenge right now in the mortgage industry is we're seeing something very similar to what happened during COVID, but with much lower inventory. So during COVID, interest rates were extremely low, which drove everyone to want to purchase homes, and everyone wanting to purchase homes also caused prices to increase and a lot of bidding wars on houses with very high inventory. Now we're currently experiencing a situation where there's very low inventory because interest rates are so high and people are still wanting to purchase homes, which is, I think, causing volume to drop dramatically in the space overall. So you're seeing a lot of lenders close their doors because they just simply can't get the volume.
I was one of those guys, right? I got one of those low interest loans, and I'm never leaving that house, right? I'm never selling that house. I'm going to stay in it. They're going to have to take me out in a box, right? So low inventory being the biggest challenge?
Yeah, so we're currently using Decisions to expand in a few different spaces we think that Kander can provide value in mortgage. So one implementation that we currently just released is Kander Data Check, which allows you to take in your borrower documentation and your loan application, and we'll make on-the-fly recommendations to you on how to fix your loan application to get closer to a clear to close without having to manually go in and fix it. So we'll update the loan application for you on your behalf, and that allows you to get faster to a clear to close with Kander without having to manually go in and adjust your application and see what works. We'll tell you what you need to go fix.
I love it. I love it. Mark, same question. Biggest challenge, and how are you prepared to meet it?
The biggest challenge that we're really seeing in the marketplace is one of people. There seems to be this real lack of qualified, well-experienced people out in the marketplace that know how to do the work that needs to be done. And our clients have, in the last several years, come to us with different things than they've ever come to us before with. They've said, hey, we've got a project and we really need your help with it because we've discovered that we don't have a plan for getting this done ever. It's critical. It's on our, our leadership's goal to do, and we just don't have a clear path to ever get this done. And we say, well, that's really interesting. That sounds awful. Why is that? And they said, well, we've got the technology. We kind of have the plan. We just don't have anybody who knows how to do all the stuff we need to do. And we say, well, okay, what technology do you want to use to solve that problem? And they say, well, whatever. We say, well, we don't know whatever. And they say, well, that's fine. Would you be willing to come in and learn that technology and help us out? And in the past, it had been like, you have to know this stuff. You've got to be an expert to come in and help. And that standard seems to have completely slipped because something has totally changed in the market. Mm-hmm. And it feels like businesses are standing on a land of sand like they never have before. And I've been in the business world for 30 years, and I have never seen anything like this. And every time I run across this, I pinch myself and say, really? And it continues.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was at a risk management conference not too long ago. So all the guys from the big accounting firms and the doom and gloom crowd, as I call them, right, the risk managers. And they weren't talking about, the tail end of COVID or the interest rates or the war in Ukraine. They were talking about the talent crisis, right? Being able to do the things that you need to do in a new way because the talent out there, especially in traditional application development, just isn't there, right? Chris, tell us a little bit about what you see as the biggest challenge and how you're meeting it. I'd also like to hear, if any of you and how are thinking about AI and ChatGPT and how that might impact the business.
So I will chime in a little bit on the lack of talent, and it's not just in app dev. We have found it's pretty much across all positions. It is very, very hard to find people. We've had a fairly substantial growth rate. We were a startup right when COVID hit. That's when we decided to start up, actually. And so we've grown over the past couple years, but finding people to fill any position is hard. That is one of the reasons we don't build huge enterprise systems on it, but we build a lot of smaller things, especially to take care of the fact that we don't have the qualified people to do some of the jobs. But the other thing is you don't necessarily want to spend that much time trying to teach somebody the intricacies when you can have a system do it.
Yeah, if you reduce it to the process, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we will reduce it down to whatever process it is, put that in decisions, and run that. That way, not everybody has to be a knowledge owner on how that process works. It just gets done, they do their little piece, and we're good. Biggest other challenge we have is, clearly the economy. Anybody who's gone out to buy a car, you probably know the prices are unbelievable, assuming you could even find one, and everything goes well over market. The problem is all of those lower priced cars, which are what a lot of people depended on, those are now almost double. So what was an $8,000 car a couple years ago is now 16 grand.
Is the supply really tight too?
It is. Supply has gotten better. Yeah. It has not returned to pre-COVID levels, and it's not going to for a couple years because all of the manufacturers cut their manufacturing. So it will be several years before that recovers. So the other thing that we're doing is being a little more agile in what is not our main business. And by that I mean we have a main business, we're very good at it, we have an ERP system for that we built because it's a very niche market. We have had a lot of industry people come to us with various requests. And they are, in some cases, they're similar to what we do, but they aren't it exactly, and we cannot change our ERP to accommodate them. So we had a group of franchise dealers, and what they asked us for, we ended up building in Decisions. It was less than 3 months. It's a full-fledged system to help run their operations. And that was a case where without Decisions, we would have just turned them down. But with Decisions, we were able to take that business. As far as AI goes, well, to Heath's point, AI is coming for everybody and every job. As much as I hate that thought of it, on the other hand, I contribute to it. I use ChatGPT a lot. Sometimes it's just to carry on a conversation, but usually there's a point to it. So for instance, we will use it. One of the easiest use cases is we have a portal where our end users can submit their feature requests and their ideas and all of that. No matter how you try to structure that, it is 95% of the time a rambling stream of consciousness of 3 paragraphs long that are all contradictory of whatever it is they want. It takes a while if you're going to sit there and read through that and pick out all of these actual things they're looking for. Put that in ChatGPT and ask for detailed requirements, and you will get them. Now, you still have to review it. It isn't going to be perfect, but it is a really easy way for it to highlight what exactly they're asking for and the discrepancies in what they said. You know, i.e. line 1 will be the field needs to accept zeros, and the 10th requirement down will be the field can't take zeros. So we do use it for that. We're very excited to see it integrated in Decisions because we are very definitely planning on incorporating that more in what we do.
Well, it's going to kill us all, so there you go. Miles, what's the biggest challenge in the business for you right now?
Yeah, as a financial institution, one of the things obviously is that other financial institutions which were making poor choices with how they were investing. And so MidFirst Bank is the largest privately held institution in America. We try to invest back into what we're doing. And the speed with which our decisions group has grown is probably my biggest issue, just, you know, to the point that the talent pool is a little bit harder to tap into with a new tool like Decisions, that you just want somebody who knows how to break down a process. They can use Decisions. It's incredibly easy to use. They just need to see how to apply. And then providing value without getting scope creep. After PPP, every executive was like, how do I
do this?
Yeah, exactly. And we, of course, are like, yes, of course, Decisions can do this. So trying to define scope in a meaningful way, and I found some value in some of these talks about just focus on an MVP and then enhance as you go. Definitely something I'm hoping to take back.
That's great. That's great feedback. Thanks, you guys, for all of that. I wanted to open the floor up to some questions. If you'd like to ask some questions of these fine, talented individuals. Does anyone have any questions they wanted to pose? I'll walk over like Phil Donahue. Like, grill. Yeah, all right, here I come. It's a good thing I wore my sneakers, right? Oh, he's like an old talk show host guy. I'm really old, so. You old?
I feel like I'm on The Price is Right. This is awesome. This is a question to all the panelists. Either when you're dealing with customers or in-house, how do you deal with certain legacy systems? I feel like a lot of the financial sector might deal with systems that have been around longer than I have, or Excels they've been using since 2002, things like that.
I can start, I guess. So our mortgage company has a mainframe still, and yes, we have to accommodate scripting within Decisions. And one of the best things about it was wrapping some of these communications to these legacy systems in a flow and tying the dependencies for everything that want to tap into that to that spot. So if a legacy system has a change, we only need to make a change in one spot. That is huge, and I think everybody hates Excel macros. So breaking those down has been beneficial overall.
Yeah, tying together all those legacy systems is a real challenge, and especially in the banking industry or in government, really all industries, a lot of that old stuff is still around, and being able to connect to it and make it useful and pull the data from it is a real challenge. That's great feedback. Does anybody else have any questions that they wanted to pose? Right on. Hey, J-Rod, how you doing, man? Good, brother. Here you go.
My question is, how can trading help you guys to get your people up to speed in the financial vector? Like, what are suggestions that you like or don't like, things you want to add or remove that would help you get your employees ready to work on those projects you have them?
So I actually have one difficulty that we noticed is decisions is a very, very, very powerful development tool. When you do not have a strong background in software development, people, when designing applications, can make systematic mistakes early on that are very hard to repair further down the road. So putting in some kind of base level training on basic software development and understanding data models and data structures, not just what they are in decisions, but what they mean institutionally, I think would be a huge improvement, because that's one significant problem that I've noticed.
That's excellent feedback. Have you guys ever considered, any of you on the panel, have any of you ever considered, because talent is still such a burning question and issue for all of us, have you considered on-site trainings to like kind of supplement the training that we currently provide? Oh yeah, I made them think. Did you see that? Because we do that.
Almost all of what we do, we've spent sort of the last 10 years going back and forth through the cycle of how do we get really good talent? Because as a consulting organization, you go through this awful cycle of not having projects and then having these giant projects. And then when you have these giant projects, the giant projects end up being really hard. You never get a giant easy project. You get a giant hard project. And when you get a giant hard project, then you need a bunch of brilliant people all of a sudden, not a bunch of people that don't know anything, which are people you could get.
Right.
You need suddenly a bunch of brilliant people. So this is like the worst case scenario. And our strategy to solve that always was, we should go out and just hire some brilliant people. That's what everybody does. But it turns out that doesn't work at all for us, because the type of work that we do and the type of work that almost everybody does with decisions is too hard. And it's not too hard in a programming way, and it's not too hard in a technical way. It's too hard in a you've got to kind of have it all together sort of way. You've got to understand the business, you've got to understand the process, and you've got to understand the tool. And that's kind of asking for a unicorn. And to get that, the only way we've been able to do that is to slowly grow them in flower boxes around the edges of the company. And so we're always watering and feeding carefully people that we hire right out of school with the expectation that they will need to have all of those skills. And what we keep seeing happening in the market is this steady push towards projects getting harder and harder and harder. And if we didn't have tools like decisions, they would cross the threshold of being impossible to execute. What decisions does is it takes it back into the realm of possibility. It doesn't make the projects easier, it just makes them possible. I wonder if anybody else has a observation along those lines or a sense.
What's more a correct answer there?
That's definitely going to make the greatest hits reel, though. Yeah, strong.
So I'm going to chime in. I think it would be great to have more foundationals, and by that I don't mean on decisions. It's back to the same thing. The architecture, the modeling, how you do it, the best practices. I know I've always loved it when I get a peek into how does decisions do it themselves? So checking out your requirements documents and what you write up and how you do it and what your best practices are. Those are the things that I find exceptionally helpful, because the ability, it's all great in concept. Here's how this step works. Great. Well, it's dummy data. You don't know exactly really how it works. But if you can see something that you guys have done, it is a lot clearer to be able to grasp whatever concept it is. So that would be my one thing. I do think, given that a lot of the people that are coming in as decision developers do not have a true development background, so they're missing that foundational layer. I think it would be great if training incorporated that as well.
You just made J-Rod so happy. He is so happy right now that we're talking about that. That's a great point, right? Does anyone else have anything they'd like to ask the panel or ask me about like places to eat in Virginia Beach? Who's going home like right after this? Sticking around for a while? This guy. Does anybody have any other questions that they'd like to ask? Do you guys have any like final comments or like advice you could give to people that are just starting off in their decisions journey? What's a golden nugget? Or your worst mistake?
Okay, well, I'm not going to add on the worst mistake part, but on the, I want to drive back to the legacy API piece. So in the mortgage industry, the MBA has a subsidiary called Mismo that's responsible for providing a lot of the financial structure, the data structures basically around the finance industry. And their whole job is basically to build panels around how do we model data in an appropriate way it can be usable across multiple different companies. In mortgage, you currently have the ULAD and the ILAD, right? And so there was a 3.2 standard that, back to your point, was all documented on a massive Excel sheet, and you had to basically peel through that thing and just try to figure it all out. And then it didn't actually get much better with the 3.4 format that you just released. You had to do the same thing, except it was in a PDF. Now you just read the whole PDF and try to figure it out. Something I found that was very powerful that Decisions offered us was the ability to take the baseline template XMLs that they provided us and import it immediately into Decisions and give us a baseline to work off of. Because otherwise, having to go line by line and try to implement those XMLs would have been impossible. So two things in the financial services space. I think it's important for more industries to get more involved with Mismo and try to unify that data to make the financial industry better as a whole for everybody. And then two, really make use of the JSON pieces and the XML pieces that are built into Decisions, because I think that gives you a launch pad to build off of.
I love it. Oh, hey, that's the Papa, everybody. Pravash. All right, cool.
With the Silicon Valley Bank thing that happened,
Yes.
in the world that we live in, you all working in financial sectors, what chatter or what pressure are you getting from your stakeholders as far as advanced or additional certifications or attestations? As you make decisions in SOC 2 Type 2 on a journey to have that by end of Q3, we're DSS PCI compliant, recertifying, as a matter of fact, this week. So what other things are you getting pressure or getting nudges from your stakeholders to say, hey, have you looked at these things? We need to maybe shift our attention on those things.
That's a great question.
My industry, we are not consumer facing, so the rules and the compliance are very different. We've gotten no push from our stakeholders or board on changing anything that we do in the way of compliance or data privacy.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you, Pravash. All right. Unless anyone else has any questions, I'll release you back out into the wild. And thanks so much for our panel. Big hand, everyone. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for making some time for us. We really appreciate it.